Space, the final frontier. Time, what I have to waste, evidently. My mission, to boldly go and talk about my ship. Player's log, stardate 100752.86. Having watched a few episodes of Star Trek Picard, I became nostalgic for a Star Trek role-playing game that my best friend Jim put me through back in the 90s, and decided to dig out some old sketches I did of the starship that I designed for our adventures, what I called the Guardian-class cruiser. Seeing how primitive my old sketches were, I decided to give them a modern update. Back when Jim approached me with the idea of a Star Trek game, I wasn't really into Trek and had only seen a scattering of Next Gen and DS9 episodes. I did, however, have a copy of the Enterprise D technical manual, and had my own ideas of what a starship should look like. So, as I was playing an engineer in the game anyway, I decided to try my hand at starship design. The sketch that you are looking at now is the result. I was going for a more bird-like profile, with lots of breaks in the traditionally smooth flow of next-gen era ships, as in, for example, the sharper beak-like forward area of the ship, and the swept-back style of the fore nacelles. I called this design the Guardian class, envisioning it as a smaller patrol vessel, rather than a ship of exploration. Of course, just designing the exterior of the ship wasn't enough. I had to sketch out the inside as well. As you can see, the Guardian class had 18 decks, 2 shuttle bays, and a lot of other features in common with your typical next-generation ships. In retrospect, its profile and overall layout feels very much like Voyager, which is funny because I hadn't yet seen that show. But modern me saw some room for improvement, and not just aesthetically. I had an idea that I wanted to incorporate, a notion that TNG had introduced, but that, to my knowledge, Trek lore hadn't done anything with. So I got on Sketchbook and started drawing. Now that's better. Let's take a look at the RES Transporter Core buffer. In the TNG episode Relics, Scotty survives decades by rigging a transporter to loop his pattern through the buffer. I loved this idea, and envisioned a ship that could use that technique to quickly and safely evacuate planets. The ship could transport thousands of people at a time, and store millions of people in this dedicated buffer for weeks on end. With several of these ships responding in a crisis, a whole planetary population could be evacuated to a new world, saving that civilization from ruin. Imagine if these ships had been around to evacuate Romulus. We'd be in a different position, and the Federation would have an entire empire in their debt. Of course, I couldn't just stop with designing the Lacars. I had to create the ship. So I fired up SketchUp Online and started modeling. And there she is. I wound up unhappy with the basic hull design, so I decided to make modifications that wouldn't disrupt the profile of the ship, but would make the vessel more visually appealing, hence the fins at the back of the saucer and the pincers on the forward side. I envisioned these as extra sensors and transporter receptors that allowed the ship to beam up such large quantities of people. Of course, these ships have to be extremely maneuverable, as well as armed. A ship carrying a large percentage of a world's population would be vulnerable to hostile powers, pirates, and other ne'er-do-wells. I envisioned that a few cruisers would escort a Guardian ship if it were undertaking a planetary evacuation, but in those cases where such aid was unavailable, a Guardian would be able to hold its own. Thank you for watching. please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, Ensign, set course for Earth. Warp Factor 8. Engage.